What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Bethany All Access podcast. I am so excited that you tuned in for this episode. My name is Renee, and look, guys, this episode is going to be super cool. We're going to talk about the art of graphic design. But look, before we get started, man, I just want to introduce our sponsor for this episode called Novity. Man, what I love about Novity is that they help you maximize your church engagement. So look, if you want more information, go to novitybrand.com. But also, we have our BoldX Empower Conference starting on June 12th through the 14th. And y'all, look, I am so excited for this conference because this is going to be an opportunity for you and your youth groups to come here and experience God. And look, if you want more information, go to BethanyAllAccess.com. And also, look, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to this episode because, look, guys, we want you guys to stay connected with us. So again, thank y'all so much. We love y'all. And yes, we're going to get started with this amazing episode. So look, everybody, we have two amazing people here, and we have Josh on that side. Josh, tell everybody what's up.
Hey, how's it going?
And then we have Randy over here, y'all. And look, what I love about these two people, they're actually part of our graphic design team here at Bethany Church. And look, they create amazing graphics. They have the eye for graphic design. They even have the heart for graphic design as well. But look, I just have this question as we're gonna just dive into it and everything. Just real quick, what got you guys interested in graphic design or just knew like, hey, look, this is my calling right now in life? Randy?
For me, graphic design I got into graphic design without really realizing it when I was probably like 13 or 14. I was diving into Photoshop. So and I've always been into art, ever since I was a kid. Like art was my favorite class, always looking forward to it. So I really knew what I felt like my calling was. Maybe I just didn't realize it then. I was so young. And I went to school for it. And then that's where like my art really started to take themes of like faith and having hope and what does that mean and what does it look like. And then that's when I really started attending Bethany. And I thought that at the time, that's when working for the church might be good for me. And then, I think that's I didn't really find my passion, before working through the church. I really found it, fortunately, I guess, whenever I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you just got into it at a young age and then you just started creating stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Did you start like drawing and everything or did you start doing like stuff on the computer?
I started with drawing.
Okay.
I think, elementary, it's really like where it really kicked off for me. And then I guess dabbling into the computers back then, which it sounds like it was so long ago. But I think in that like middle school range when I was like 13, 14 is really whenever I just took a liking to it. I think I had a friend that like was like, hey, I really saw people do these really cool photos. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And like photo manipulation and stuff. So I think that's what really like opened the door. And then I was like, oh, I think I didn't realize I could do a job like this. So I'm going to pursue that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Josh, what about you, bro?
Yeah, it's kind of similar. When I was a teenager, this is further back, so probably mid-90s. As a teenager, drawing a lot. My dad drew and I drew, and always kind of raised in like an artistic family. Yeah. My dad was a pastor and he did music and all that kind of stuff. And so I kind of did music and art and photography and all that stuff. But it really didn't kick in until probably the late 90s. I was in a band and we needed, flyers and graphics and t-shirt designs and all that stuff. And so
you were in a band?
Oh, I was in 3 bands. But yeah,
That's
I was in a punk rock band and I was in 2 heavy metal bands.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah. So kind of that alternative like style music and like getting into the graphic design to play shows, you need flyers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it went from drawing to like collaging.
Okay.
So I did a lot of collaging and then I would like go to Kinko's and like photocopy my own like flyers and stuff for shows. And then I was like, oh, you can like collage on the computer.
Yeah.
And so like I got on the computer and it was like, okay, I checked out Paint. And I was like, this sucks. I need something else. And then I had a friend of mine who was in graphic design. He told me about Photoshop, and he gave me a copy of Photoshop. And
Oh yeah, that was when it was like on
this
the disc.
was this was like before YouTube tutorials and all that. So I had no idea what I was doing. I had to like just figure it out. And so I clicked on every single button and drug every single thing and tool and just kind of like cobbled together a style. And just over the years, I just got better and better. People started asking me to make things for them. And so, yeah. And then when it got into the context of ministry was I'd been laid off a job and needed something really bad. And like the church was like the last place I thought of to like ever do anything really, other than like ministry stuff that we think about. But I saw Bethany was hiring for a graphic designer. And I was like, well, I'll try this. And it worked. And I've been here for 7 years now. So, yeah, I love it.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for just giving just a little bit of insight about yourself and everything. Because that's really cool, because Randy, you had no idea he was in the band. I had no idea. So that's really cool, man. I love these conversations and everything. But look, man, my next question is this. When creating graphics for like sermon series, right? What are some of the key things that you go through mentally just to make sure that you're capturing, the heart and the mission and just the vision behind what the sermon series is about? Josh?
For me is definitely just hearing. It's best to hear the vision of whoever's preaching the message. Most of the time it's Pastor Jonathan, and so I love to get any kind of feedback or notes or mindset that it's really good to have like a passage of scripture, and I'll go into that. I'm very heavy into theology, and I like to carry that over into my design work. So if I can get like a chunk of scripture, like, hey, this is the idea we're shooting for, then I can kind of go from there. But yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Randy?
I was going to second that too. It's really helpful. I know that when we're brainstorming for a sermon series or even just events like Christmas or Easter, we're always like, hey, like, what's the idea? What's a scripture that that Pastor Jonathan is wanting to talk about? And I think that that's so helpful because you can take that and then I can go and try and dissect it and really start to, okay, these are the color choices I'm going to use. Okay, now I'm going to turn into like, okay, these are the fonts that I think I might use. And then that turns into, okay, now we need to come up with like the imagery and like how, because as graphic designers, our job is to basically take information and organize it in a way that is visual that people can connect to. And so having your message or even just like an inkling of, hey, I think this is what I want this to be about. That's so helpful when it comes to creating graphics.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll get like, hey, I want this kind of image with this kind of feel to it. And, we can shoot that way. And then sometimes you're like, here, take it and run with it. That's always fun.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So whenever y'all talking about like the different color palettes and like fonts and everything, how do you, I guess, determine which colors are best for this graphic or this sermon series and even fonts?
So we have a dartboard on the wall, and we
Okay.
throw a dart, and whatever dart hits that color I get mine through Pinterest. I go on Pinterest and I look up like design stuff, and I'll just scroll through till I see cool stuff. I'm like, oh, that looks cool, and I'll compile like a little mood board, and that's how I do it.
Yeah, I also do that too. Definitely Pinterest designer. Like I'm like there for inspiration all the time. But I think like deeper though, like colors, they evoke emotion.
Yep.
And they evoke a mood. Whenever, you look at the color yellow, it's like, okay, well, what does the color yellow make me feel? And so it's just thinking in those terms, like I'm not going to choose like dark colors for like a sermon series that's supposed to be happy.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
And it's all in black.
Yeah.
Black and purple.
So I think it's just thinking in terms of like, like, yeah, it looks pretty, but like what's deeper, and what am I trying to communicate at the end of the day? Like, and maybe to people who, like, the average person's not thinking that deep whenever they're looking, but they don't realize, like, oh, when I look at that, it makes me
affecting
feel
them, yep.
like this. And they may not even realize that it's even affecting them like that. But those are things that you kind of think about. And even like font choice is a big thing too. Like, fonts carry character. They carry emotion too. They carry like their own personalities. And so like thinking in those terms too, yeah.
Right. You just gave me like a revelation moment. Is that the reason why fonts or like the words are called characters? Like
Oh,
if it's
maybe,
only
yeah.
like 50 characters. Anyways,
Could
that's
be
probably a
link
little too
there.
deep.
There's a lot of psychology in that.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, people don't think about that. They just think, oh, graphic designer they're like playing around with little, their coloring book, and they're making an image for us. There's a lot of psychology that goes into it too, if you really get down deep into it. To really evoke a certain emotion, a certain feeling, a vibe. There's a reason that like God, and I always go back to this as like an example for creatives. There's a reason that God like gave specific details in the construction of the tabernacle.
That's so good.
There's like lighting, there's furniture, there's color, there's fabric. I mean, there's so much that goes into it to create a certain vibe and a feeling when you go in.
Yeah.
It's like when you walk into like a cathedral, like you automatically feel, oh, I need to be quiet. I need to be reverent. This is a
that's
place
good,
of respect and honor and holiness. And so, yeah.
That's really good. Well, since we're on the whole tabernacle thing, how are like creatives and graphic designers ministers of the gospel?
I'll let you take this one.
Yeah.
And Randy, you go
graphic
next.
designers. and see, this didn't develop in me until, just a few years ago. But I kind of had that mentality of like, I'm just here to do like some art stuff and, help, any way I can. And a few people in my life, especially Cardiff, our creative director, he really like showed me and helped me like, hey, you're a minister. Like, you're not just here to create art or whatever. And the more I looked into it, I really got stuck on the tabernacle and how like creative people were commissioned to build the very house of God. Like, God is coming down to earth and he's going to physically rest in this place. That's a very important thing. And he tasked creative people to create it. And like I said before, you got construction people that sculpt and knit, people that are jewelers and they have to mine certain, metals and gold and, just so much stuff that goes into this. And the main thing is that they're building a place that houses the presence of God. God's people come in, they're forgiven of sin, and they're able to connect to, the Lord himself. And it's no different now. Like, we as designers and creatives create a vibe, create an atmosphere, create a place for people to come in, worship the Lord, have their sins forgiven, and connect with God one-on-one.
Well,
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, Randy.
That is good. And ministry, when people think of ministry, I think they think like, oh, I'm supposed to have a mic and I'm supposed to be out in front of people and I'm supposed to, but really we serve behind the curtain. Like we're not really seen. And yeah, people like see our things, but they're like, oh, I don't know who did that, unless they know you really well. Then they're like, oh, did you do that? I'm like, yeah.
Or you're like me and you walk through the halls, like, look what I did. Look at me. I need validation.
But yeah, it's definitely like a silent role.
Yeah.
And in just ways that like it's ministry. It's like I'm going to God before I start a project, and I'm asking him like, help me communicate what you're wanting to say, like as part of the sermon series. I'm sorry. And you're going to him, and then he's flowing through you into what you're physically making, and then that is being communicated to the church, his people, to the lost, So yeah, I think just to tack on to what Josh is saying.
No, that's really cool. I probably forgot a little bit about this, but from what I remember about the tabernacle, one of the criteria as well for those people to like build a tabernacle and all that was wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
like
So
they
right, yeah.
needed wisdom
Yeah.
to create.
They could die if they didn't use wisdom correctly in the tabernacle.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's so wild.
Yeah.
So with that, how does wisdom play a part, I would say, into creating graphics and or just video elements and things like
I'll
that?
let
How would you
Randy
say?
answer that one.
That's a really good question. That's really good. It's taking me a second.
It's all good.
One thing I could think of real quick is just being submitted to leadership
Yeah.
and
For sure.
listening to their guidance and everything.
Yeah, I think Cardiff actually, our creative director, is a really good example of this. He is really good at delegating things, and he's not a micromanager at all. He really gives us creatives on the team freedom to create. He doesn't put us in a box, and I think that takes a lot of trust, and I think it's very wise, to let us create in that blueprint. That way, like, because if you put a creative in a box, you're not allowing new ideas to form.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
prohibiting,
I think he's just a really good example of using wisdom in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and we feed off of that. Like
Yeah.
he's a great leader, and then listening to our pastors and just being submitted under leadership is wise, and it helps in our everyday things that we're doing.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you said was about Cardiff gives you guys a framework basically to work in and everything, but he doesn't really micromanage, right?
Yeah.
Do you wish like maybe pastors or other leaders understood that a little bit more for creatives? And if so, like why is that important to, I'm not saying let the creative just run
yeah.
wild and free,
Sure,
but why
yeah.
give them a framework, but also have the liberty to do those things? Why do you think that's important?
Right. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants freedom. Like everybody wants to be able to move, and if you're confined in a tight space, you can't move.
Yeah.
And so, to move freely, and you could play on this spiritually, moving in the spirit and moving in your ministry and your calling. Like you need freedom and room to do that.
Yeah.
Now, you definitely want parameters, like we were talking about being submitted under authority, and but yeah, you definitely got to have freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom.
Yeah.
You got to have it.
Yeah. And you think about it like this too, like, I know we've had conversations in the past, Josh and I, about how, God is the original creator. And imagine if he was put in a box. Imagine if he had very strict rules in creating the universe. I mean, it probably wouldn't be as beautiful.
We wouldn't have the duck-billed platypus, I'll tell you that, because that's a creative animal.
Yeah, or them Canadian geese
Oh my
walk
God.
around our
Those
area
guys.
and everything.
They have a coup going on out there.
Yeah, no.
They're really about to rise up and
No,
overthrow us.
they are.
No, that's wild. But I just wanted to say thank y'all for sharing that about like just the creative freedom, because I know, just like what you were saying, Josh, not everybody wants to be put in the box, but also being empowered to create and have a certain framework to work around really helps the creative grow their gifts and everything. But why would you say that helps the creative, sharpen their gifts, I would say? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think when you give a creative freedom to move, you're giving God like liberty to move, really.
Okay.
That's good.
Because
Yeah.
we've been gifted with certain abilities and talents that God has given us. And when you limit that, you're limiting God, really.
Yeah.
You're limiting the move of the Holy Spirit that he's put on that person. So for pastors, and we've had conversations with graphic designers at other churches that, I'm not able to do that, or I can't use this thing or that thing. And, it's like I'm very restricted, and I have to get everything approved by this person and this person and this person. That really restricts, I think, God moving in that church. Like he's set up people in certain places, just like a pastor. He gives them the ability to navigate and preach and expound. And it's the same with creatives and graphic designers. Like God has given those people giftings to move in and for his spirit to flow through and direct the church artistically and graphically to go a certain way. And then when you restrict that, you're really restricting God.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow, that's good. Randy, you have anything you want to add to that?
I think he hit the nail on the head.
That's so funny, man. What would you say is probably one of the most challenging thing being a graphic designer at a church? Would just yeah. What would you say is the most challenging thing?
I think constant the change, the quick things can change on the fly. And and that's also speaking into a little bit of that freedom is like just using that example, but like if Pastor Jonathan, all week we're working on a sermon series, and then the day before he's like, hey, actually not going to speak on that this weekend. We're gonna shelve that, and I'm going to talk about X, Y, and Z. And being able to, I guess, adapt and allowing him to flow freely. And it's kind of like this push and pull where he actually allows us to flow freely as well. Like there's a lot of things that we make that he's like, yeah, I like it. It's great. He is also very open. And so that helps as well. And so I think it's like this push and pull of that. But I think that that's a really big challenge of like, oh, okay, I got to be able to, I was working on this, and now, okay, I got to do this real quick, and I got to get this, because it's not just going to like one person, I'm not just designing it and it's just going out to one person. I've got to deliver it to, people that are working on the weekend. I've got to deliver it to video. I also have to deliver it to, this person, to that person. So I would think for me, like that's probably one of our biggest challenges working at the church.
Yeah.
Dealing with other people.
Oh.
Yeah.
As harsh as that sounds, like
I wasn't gonna say
it's
that,
hard
but-
to like. As creative people, we're very independent.
Yeah.
Most of us. I can't speak for everyone, but we're very independent. We're very opinionated. We're like, this is the way it needs to be, and it's like letting other people help us and guide us and give opinion and critique and stuff like that can be difficult.
Yeah.
But that's that God has called us to be in unity and community. So
Yeah.
it's a challenge to let those walls down a little bit and like let them play with your baby. If you're designing something, it's like, oh, let's change this. It's like, no. It's like, so yeah, that's the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Second that.
Man, that's really good. I know, Randy, you were mentioning about like the flexibility, and I'm sure, Josh, you probably were placed in multiple moments where you had to pivot on a dime and everything.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
How do you remain calm in those situations? Because I know you put a lot of time and effort into those. So
I don't.
Yeah, we don't. We run around with our heads on fire.
Yeah. It's like that meme where I don't know, it's a cartoon and like the
flames,
fire.
yeah.
And we're
Flames
just
and
sitting at
dog.
the computer
This is
like
fine.
we're
Everything's
fine.
fine.
It's all good.
yeah.
But honestly, even though like I might be stressing out, our leadership is so good
Yeah.
that they're like Cardiff is always like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to
he's
work
very
out.
calming.
And so I think having leadership that is very calming in that way, it's so helpful. I mean, even we were meeting the other day and I was like, he's like, so how's it going? And I was like, like my personal life, I'm stressed and this and that. And he was like, it's okay. Like, what do you need from me? And that was so like, even just the question of like, what do you need from me? I was like, okay, I can breathe. And I mean, he was even just like, I can take something off your plate. What do you need me to take off? And I was like, okay. So I think that is the way you kind of stay cool, calm, and collected, even though on the inside, you're like, your skin is like itching because you're like, oh my gosh, Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. Josh, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, the same. Just that submitted to leadership and having good leadership over you. Bad leadership is tough to be under, but when you have somebody that knows who you are, they're creative as well,
Yeah,
and
for
understands the whole process, it's easy to serve under.
That's really
them.
cool. I have quite a few creative friends that that work at different churches and everything. And some of the conversations we'll just have is just like, hey, how is like your graphic designer, your video editing going on? And I love to pick their brain and everything. So I never asked you guys this, so I just want to ask y'all this right now.
Yeah.
As creatives, how do y'all like to be pastored? Right? Because just as you were mentioning, Josh, some of creatives can be independent and so forth and everything. But yeah, how would you say creatives like to be pastored at a church?
I think we've nailed some of those things, some of those points down.
Yeah.
Sympathy, understanding, wisdom. It's like we want the freedom to create, but when things go bad, we need somebody to go to and be like,
To lean on,
what
yeah.
do I do now? And we need somebody to guide us, through that. So it's a good fine line and a good balance of like freedom and having someone there that can kind of guide you. And
Yeah.
I think having somebody that's creative over you helps a ton. So like
Yeah.
our pastor, Pastor Jonathan, he's a creative guy.
Yeah.
He's been in music for since he was a kid, and so he knows the whole thing of like being a creative person. And so it's really easy to like serve under him because he understands the process. It's similar in those ways. If you're not a creative person, you might not understand. It could be frustrating.
Yeah.
You can frustrate yourself and frustrate your creative person, and yeah, it can be hard. But we're very blessed where we are.
Yeah.
No, that's really good. Since I kind of started working on some graphics here and there for Bethany All Access and just doing some stuff on my own, I didn't realize the mental toll that it
Yeah.
takes on your brain and how like you get so tired,
Yeah.
And then I remember as I was making some, I wanted to make something so perfect. I just started to like breathe very heavy and get anxious because it wasn't as perfect as I wanted. I was like, you know what, I'm done with all of this, and everything. But man, one of the last questions I wanted to ask before we land the plane, I know last year AI became very, very big in the creative industry and everything.
Yeah.
So please be honest with me. Were y'all scared, or were there some kind of like fears of like, oh my God, AI is about to take over and take my job and everything because now a company can just outsource it?
Yeah, that's so funny. I think at first, like, I had some, like, oh no, but then, like, looking into it and even, like, using AI myself at times, honestly, I don't think AI could take over our jobs.
Not right now.
Yeah, not right now, anyways. And yeah, I don't think AI can quite get it perfect. Like, AI can't take, it's limited. At a certain point, it's
Yep.
limited. So yeah, I'm not too
Not too
worried.
afraid.
No.
Yeah, there's a reason we're created in God's image,
Yeah.
and AI can never replicate that.
Yeah.
No matter how sophisticated it gets or how lifelike it seems or what it can do, it's never going to replace the uniqueness of humanity. So,
Yeah.
if you want that uniqueness, you got to go through a
Yeah.
person.
No, that's really good. And I'm glad that you said about like you use AI, because one of the things that I picked up from Real Think Media, like the Sean Cannell stuff, he said, AI is not something that can replace you, but use it as an assistant to help
Yeah.
you.
It's a tool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just keep using it to help you grow and to just create new ideas and everything. So
Think
yeah.
about the designers
Yeah.
that were doing, hands-on design work, and then Photoshop was created. They're like, oh no,
Yeah.
Photoshop
That's
and
true,
computers
yeah.
are going to take out. No, it's like, dude, it's a tool. It's just a different way of doing it and doing it
Yeah.
more efficiently. And yeah, it's just a tool is all it is.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. So real quick, last question. How do y'all use AI to assist you in your graphic design?
I mean, with Photoshop, like, expanding an image, it's so easy with a click of a button to just expand an image if I need to.
You might have to explain what you're saying there.
Oh yeah, thank you. So like in Photoshop, there's like an AI box basically that comes up, and you can type in whatever you want of like, let's say I wanted to expand
Like the setting
the
here.
edges,
Okay, the
yeah,
edges, okay.
and because I needed more room for text on an image, and so I could literally put in and say, expand the image so with a white background, and I can even put like the dimensions of how big I want the image and hit generate, and it'll give me 3 options, and I can click which one is best. I can even like report like, hey, this option was bad. And then it'll let, Adobe, I guess, know that, okay, well, this was bad, so we won't do that one anymore. And then I've used, my Midjourney and Discord to just create some really cool images. I know, Josh, you do it a lot.
Yeah, we did a whole sermon series with AI generated images. So we did a thing on the tabernacle, actually. It was all the pieces of the tabernacle. And it's like, we don't have a golden Ark of the Covenant to take pictures of.
Yeah.
I guess we could get one, but it would probably be pretty pricey. But like we went into Midjourney and we were able to set a whole mood, use the pieces of furniture from Scripture, and give it a lot of prompt to really get it pretty accurate. And we did the whole series that way, and it was fun. It was cool. I mean, it's still a lot of work. Like, there's a lot of prompting and stuff you got to do, a lot of research you got to do to get what you need. And but it's a great tool. A lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for sharing just y'all journey a little bit and some of the different challenges graphic designers face in churches, but also some things on to equip church leaders and pastors and everything, how to work with creatives and how to lead them and everything. So y'all, thank y'all so much for being here and everything. So everybody, man, this is the conclusion of this episode. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and send this episode to someone, because we know that this episode can be valuable to someone else. See y'all next time.